Okay, so good morning, afternoon, actually, and welcome to the call. Today, we're going to be talking about the secrets to improving your cash flow immediately. And I've had the privilege of having Barbara Ford with me today. Barbara runs a bookkeeping business in the local area. She's been doing that for the past 10 years, in which time she's dealt with at least 500 clients who run small businesses. Now she's got 9 employees in that business, and she's here today to give us some of her insights and tips on how we can get the best cash flow within our business. So, welcome to the call, Barbara.
Thanks, David. I started like most people in small business from the back bedroom in my house, and it got to a stage after a while that it had got too busy, so I had to decide whether to expand or cut back. And I expanded, and along the way, one of the major problems I had in my business was cash flow.
Yeah.
And so I presume most businesses have the same problem at some time during their business journey.
They absolutely do. So, really, today's going to be about just really uncovering, I suppose, what are your insights? What are the sort of some of the obvious things, but maybe the not so obvious things that the small business owner can look at to really improve cash flow? Because I think one of the keys is, in small business, cash flow is king. And understanding what cash flow is all about is key. And really just making sure that people know what they can do to get that money in the door. Because I'm pretty sure that a lot of businesses die because they just don't get that cash in the door. And they're working really hard to serve their clients really well. And they just don't understand how to get that money. So hopefully we can get into some of those insights today.
Absolutely, and it can be a really good business
Yeah.
that you've got running there,
Yeah.
and just it would be going 3, 4, 5 years, an excellent business, and suddenly you're trying to expand. You haven't allowed enough money for your expansion. Your cash flow suffers, and bang, your business is gone.
Yeah.
So this is something that every business owner has to keep an eye on through the whole life of their business journey.
Sure, sure. And by the way, for the listeners, if you have any questions around cash flow as we're going through this, please feel free to put them into the questions box on the right hand side, and we'll endeavour to answer those if we've got time. So, look, in your opinion, I suppose let's start at the start. What's the biggest problem with small business?
Well, I think we've pretty much covered that, and the answer is cash flow for most small
Yeah,
businesses. Um, we find that a lot of businesses start off as technicians.
yeah,
So somebody who is really good at what they do and they love what they do,
yeah.
and they decide to make it their business.
Okay.
Um,
So they're coming in with all the skills
mm,
of the technical part of their
mm,
business. But I know for a fact from my experience as well is that sometimes they don't like talking about money. They don't like doing invoices. They don't like chasing money. It's just not in their nature.
that's exactly right. Especially those people that start their businesses as a technician, they're not used to asking for money.
Mm,
They're doing the job, and they're doing a good job. Doing it well.
mm.
But when it comes to getting money at the end,
Yeah.
it's embarrassing.
So how do we overcome that? That sounds like a psychological barrier, not a bookkeeping barrier.
It is. In most cases, it is. People are embarrassed talking about money, and they just think, I've done the job, and they assume people are going to pay them. But that's not human nature. People don't do that.
No.
So, one of the funniest things I ever saw was a client offering to pay up front, and the business owner said, no, 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 it's okay. I'll get the money at the end.
Hmm.
And I thought, what? So, if someone offers to pay you up front, rule number one, accept it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what your payment terms are.
So I would agree. I think the psychology around money as a business owner, most people think, well, it's not something I should have to ask for.
Mm,
Right? I've done the job because
that's
as
right.
an employee, you don't expect to have to ask for your paycheck.
No, that's right. Exactly.
So we get taught, or we get brought up that money will be given us because we deserve it. And then as a business owner, you soon realise that money doesn't get given to you unless you chase it.
Exactly.
And
That's right. And so, as a business owner, you really need to adjust your focus
right.
to cash flow. It needs to be something you need to think about every single day.
Okay. So part of the rule number one is really to make sure it's visible.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, that's
Making
right.
sure that it's there in front of us. Make sure we're not shy of it. Make sure we overcome this fear of asking.
Mm.
And really, it's not even asking. It's sort of almost shepherding, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's the final stage in completing the job.
Right.
Is here's the job.
Yep.
You give me the brief. I do the job. The job's completed. You give me the money.
Yeah.
So you ask for the job brief at the start. You should ask for the money at the end if it isn't immediately forthcoming.
Yeah. And I mean, just little tips on that. My first thing is always to think about, well, you're not comfortable asking for the money, you got a problem right there. So getting all of that done in an orderly fashion, making sure that your terms are clear and all those sorts of things. But I'm sure we're going to cover that through the.
We are going to cover all of those sorts of things through the course of the webinar today.
Okay.
But if you yourself are not comfortable asking for money, there are always other people that can do it for you.
Right.
Some people have a mental block in the fact that it's my customer.
Mm.
I want to keep that good relationship with this customer, and if I ask them for money, that's going to upset them.
Mm.
So we've seen that a lot too. So if you have a bookkeeper, your bookkeeper can ask for money.
Right.
If you have a business coach, they can advise you on what other sorts of people or software programs nowadays will do it for you.
Mm. And often I'll suggest to people like taking credit card as a way to get money, because often credit card can be automated. It can be done simply. You don't have to chase money. You can get money immediately by getting credit card details. So let's sort of start from the start. What would be the first thing you'd ask a business when thinking about cash flow?
Excuse me. One of the first things I'd look at if I was analysing a business's cash flow was, what does their invoice look like?
Mm.
You have a look at the invoice on the screen at the moment. Can you see immediately who to pay? Could you see how to pay? What about when to pay? And basically, that invoice says to me, does anybody care if I don't pay?
Right. So really, it starts at the start. So the way the invoice is sent, or the way the invoice is presented, is really going to send a signal. Because I look at the other side of this, and as a coach, if I'm advising a client about cash flow, I would say make sure you pay your bills only when they're due, and not before.
So can you see when this bill's due?
All I can see is the payment date. I can't see when it's due.
Yep. I can't see it either. So it might indeed be there if you looked really, really carefully, but it doesn't leap out at you.
No.
So this invoice, under David's terms, would go to the bottom of the pile because it doesn't say pay on Tuesday the 10th of April.
And I'll tell you another reason it would go to the bottom of the pile, because it doesn't say how to pay.
It doesn't say how to pay either. It doesn't really say who to pay so much.
Yep.
So that's not a very good example of an invoice.
Well, it is for me, because if I was getting that, we'd go straight to the bottom of the pile.
Well, the only thing you can really see clearly on this invoice is what you bought and how much it cost you.
Yeah. Now, see, as a person issuing the invoice, I would think that that's enough, because my accounting system now tells me that you owe me money. But you're right. I look at that and I say, okay, as far as my pile of bills to pay go, that's not going near the top. So
that's right. So there's a couple of tips for that. So the first thing you should do is the first easy step to take in getting your money in is to look at your invoice and revamp it.
Yep.
Make your name and your logo prominent, so people know it's from you.
Yes.
When they see your name and your logo, they'll remember what you did for them.
Right.
It'll just automatically auto-suggestion pop into their mind.
Okay, so branding is key on the invoice to make sure that people can associate what this bill is for.
Yep.
Okay, understand that.
Make the total owing stand out. Make it pop. Make it one of the first things that someone sees when they look at your invoice.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah.
What else would they do?
Due date for payment.
Yeah, that's a big one.
The due date, make it large and make it bold. So they're under no misapprehension at all as to when this money is due.
Yep. So with terms, and this is, once again, from a coaching perspective, the first thing I'll ask people is, what are your terms? And generally speaking, people haven't thought too much about it. And they say, well, we have 30 days. And I say, why did you choose 30 days? And they go, well, that's what the accounting system was set up to do, or it's industry standard, or my clients never pay me for 30 days. So really the reason they chose 30 days was everything other than their own reason.
Absolutely, that's right.
Yeah.
So if you are running a business that is low profit margin, high invoice numbers, you probably want a shorter payment term, like 7 days or 5 days, rather than 30 days. And does it really matter what the rest of the industry is doing?
Well, it doesn't. The only exceptions, I suppose, and I hear this often, is, oh, you don't understand, we work with big corporations or government departments. And that's okay. I mean, if the corporation stipulates that I'm paying 30 days from end of month, then you need to make sure that your invoices are in order from a different perspective, which means they're in on the right date and that you actually have an alarm to chase it
on day 31.
Right.
Exactly.
But other than that, you're 100% right. And I used to think 7 days was good, but then I realised you could say due on receipt, and that makes it pretty much immediately due.
And you know what's even better? Pay in advance.
Pay in advance?
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Excellent.
there's certain things, I'm sure in most businesses, there's certain things you can pay in advance for.
Yeah.
So it might not be all of your goods or services,
Mm-hmm.
but it might be some of them. And if you're not doing it now, it would be a really good idea to take that idea on board and go back and have a look.
Yeah, and I would agree, but I've had a few people look at me with looks of horror saying, payment in advance, it's unheard of in my industry. And I said, but you're going to be first. Because,
Absolutely. I mean, it just won't work in some places, like retail, for example.
Yeah.
It doesn't work terribly well in retail
No.
in most cases, except for lay-bys.
Well,
That's pay in advance.
Here's the irony. Most people don't even realise when they're doing it. Because we go to a takeaway, like we go to McDonald's, which is a restaurant, and you go and stand at the counter and you queue up and you pay for your meal in advance.
And then they go and prepare it.
And then they go and prepare it.
Or bag it.
Or bag it. And then you serve yourself and take it to the table.
Yeah.
So it can be done. And
Absolutely.
a lot of people don't realise. And another thing that's occurred, it's a recent thing, is things like eBay. You know, where people are buying, if you can use eBay as a channel, most people don't realise it's a payment in advance channel. The things that are sold through eBay actually have to be paid for before you actually ship them.
Yeah, before they're even sent. That's right, exactly.
Yeah. So it's definitely possible. And I think it's critical for people to consider terms, because often with price negotiation, a lot of people think they're in a price competitive market. But price is not the only component of a negotiation. The other part is terms. And you can offer things like early payment discounts. You can offer things like, if you offer credit card, you can get the money immediately. All those sorts of things. So that's the other thing I noticed about this invoice. It doesn't tell me how to pay.
Exactly, and that leads me to my next point.
Excellent. Which is
how many payment options do you offer?
Right.
So there's always more than one way to get paid. There's cash.
Mm-hmm.
There's EFTPOS. There's credit card.
Yeah.
There's payment in advance by whatever method that is.
Yes.
There's a check.
Yep.
There's all sorts of various ways, anything you can really think of.
Right.
And so if on your invoice you've only got one payment method, see if you can just simply add one more.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole objective with this is offer as many payment options as possible.
Yep.
Not all businesses can handle all types of payment options, but now, for example, if you think you can't handle credit card because you don't have a little zip-zap machine or you don't have a merchant facility with your bank, nowadays there are online services that you just subscribe to and you can take credit cards that way, and you don't need a merchant facility with your bank or a zip-zap machine.
Right. So you can now offer credit card facilities without even applying for a service.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's right. So, and the other thing that I would strongly point out is, do your customers know that they can pay you cash?
Right.
Nowadays, there is so much plastic that people forget that they can pay cash. And I'm not talking about the black market here.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, pay cash, pay less. And
that's right, exactly. No, I'm not talking about that.
Right.
But you've got, and your tradies know all about that.
Yeah.
But a tradie will often want to pay cash, but happy to pay the full price.
Yes.
So why would you not accept cash? You know, unless you've got a large organisation where the monitoring of cash, there's potential for fraud or dishonesty.
So I think the key message you're suggesting here is that we need to have payment options, and they need to be on the invoice.
They need to be on the invoice, and you need to offer as many as possible.
Yeah.
So even if you can just add one more when you go and look at your invoice today, then that will give your clients an easier chance to pay you.
And I'll just make a few other points, because often people will say to me, well, credit card costs us money. And you think about this, and this is this terms thing, cost of money. See, taking a credit card might cost you 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
But to get the money today, rather than having to make phone calls and chase it, is actually probably saving you a lot more money.
Absolutely. So you look at the cost of your time.
Yes.
And let's say it takes you 1 hour in total to chase a debt over a period of 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep.
And you are paying $2.50 on your 2% credit card.
So $2.50
Surely,
for an
if you
hour of
look
my
at that,
time.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
not a good use of
Yeah,
time.
that's
So
right, exactly.
so really, we're talking about leverage. We're
Mm.
talking about really identifying what the real cost is. Because when someone says to me it costs too much to have a credit card, uh, I really ask the question: how have you decided that? Like on what premise? Because if you look at time, and which is what you just explained, it's actually far cheaper to take credit card all day long, and even American Express. Where people say, oh, I don't like Amex because they charge twice as much.
Mm.
Well, I've seen people buy on Amex because it is Amex, because they get
Absolutely,
points.
because they get points and they can travel or they can buy stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of business people. So if you're dealing B2B, business to business,
Yeah.
a lot of business people like using Amex.
Yes, they do.
For the points.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So you should accept it if possible.
And build it into your price.
Mm. Well, you can. It's very acceptable nowadays to offer with Amex to say, okay, well, there will be a surcharge on Amex. Not so much with MasterCard and Visa, but most businesses that take Amex say, oh, but there'll be a surcharge. And that's, once again, how much is your time worth per hour?
Excellent.
If you were out there working for that hour.
Yep. Look, I noticed when a lot of clients that we start working with as coaches, they actually don't keep a close eye on their debtors. They don't know who owes the money.
Yeah.
Or they're not motivated by who owes the money, and they sort of say, well, my job is not to chase people who owe me money. They should just pay. And it's an interesting discussion, because it's one of the very first questions I'll ask. And the reason I'll ask it is because when people look at their profit and loss, and I've seen this often, and they say, well, according to my P&L, I made money. But I look at my bank account and it's empty.
Where is it?
Where is it? And it's only ever in two places.
Yeah.
It's either in stock or it's in debtors.
Mm.
And I've seen debtors that are horrendous. I've seen one company whose electrical contractor, he had a year's worth of revenue in debtors. And I asked him the question, I said, how can you have 600,000 outstanding? He said, well, David, I don't need the money. And I said, that's not a good reason. He goes, and the customer that owes me the money, I don't want to ask in case they stop using us. And it was like, they're not paying for your service. And I don't think it got through to him that he'd let this build up. And from the customer's point of view, it was free money.
Yeah, free services. Yeah,
and I'd rather loan 600,000 from you for no interest than have to go to the bank for an overdraft. And I think that was the sort of mindset that he had. So let's go into this and let's talk about actually knowing about how much money is being owed.
Yeah, we see that a lot also. Often because people's bookkeeping is not up to date, that they're not quite sure who owes them what.
Right.
And the first thing I say to somebody like that is, do you actually have a debtors policy? A policy for something that's written down for how do you collect your money? What is your procedure? Do you have a script? And you might have a guideline or a procedure or an idea in your own mind, but is it written down?
Yep. And I think, like, even to elaborate on that, because debtors policy is basically a set of rules. Here's the thing that I find funny is I'll see a client send out an invoice with 14 days on it. What happens on day 14? They expect that the client is going to remember that it's day 14 and that I'll pay on that day. And there's nothing coming from the supplier that actually enforces that policy. So this is what you're talking about, is making sure there's scripts in place, even automated emails that say, and when should you be ringing the client who's due in 14 days?
I'd be ringing them on day 15.
So I have a slightly different view. I think you should ring them on day 14.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'd be ringing you up and I'd be saying, hey, Barb, just ringing to make sure that check is on its way because it's due today. So you're not in arrears yet, but I'm just making sure that you know that I know. Because
you know that I know that you know that I know.
Yeah, because I'd rather know if there's a problem before it's overdue. And the issue here really is about training your customer. Because if a customer knows David's going to be ringing on day 14, so I better pay early, day 13, I'm happier with that.
Okay.
So it's just one step further than what you've just described.
Absolutely.
But yeah, to me, it's absolutely critical that day 14 or day 15, you make the call.
Absolutely. And well, you said to me earlier, you pay your bills when they're due.
I do.
And not before.
Absolutely.
So this is, a lot of people are like you.
Yep.
Oh, that's due on such and such a day, so I'll just put it aside in my file drawer for Tuesday, and I'll pay it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And
Some
that's
people worse than me.
yeah, a lot worse than
I've
you.
met people that say, and I've seen this in big companies, multi-million-dollar companies, that say we pay our bills when we get a call.
I hear that a lot too.
Okay.
So one of the first things you should do is make sure you have a script when you ring your debtors.
Right.
Okay. And there are two benefits to that. And the first one is you know what you said. You know what to say when you talk to them,
Right.
so you don't sort of stumble. And the second one is you know what you said last time.
Yep.
If you're ringing them for the second time.
So give me an example. What sort of script?
So it might be something as simple as, "Hi, David. I noticed that you've got an overdue account with us. It was due yesterday. Is there any sort of a problem?"
Right.
Ask an open ended question, not something that they can answer yes or no to. Ask, is there a problem?
Okay.
Sorry, is there a problem they can answer yes or no to? So they'll answer yes or no. If they say no, when could we expect payment? It was due yesterday.
Yep. So it's a friendly call.
So it's a friendly call, and it's no, there's no problem. So why haven't you
Excellent.
paid? Basically, that's
Okay.
the first call.
Yep. The second call's not so nice,
The
I'm
second
guessing.
call is not so nice. So you ring the day after the invoice is due and ask if there's a problem.
Right.
So you look at your accounting program, and they've got 30, 60, 90 days.
Yep.
Your receivables, accounts receivable,
30,
30, 60, 90 days. Well, in my opinion, a bill is either due or it isn't. So
That's a really good point. Because I know some people out there use statements because they have clients that are spending on multiple occasions, and they send out a statement which has 30, 60, and 90 days. Now, my concern with that is if you say 30, 60, 90 and overdue, what's the message you're giving me?
overdue is fine.
Yeah, anything until overdue is not overdue.
Oh, okay.
So 30, 60, and 90 might be overdue according to your system, but have a look, because most bookkeeping systems, accounting systems, if you do a statement, it says 30, 60, 90 and overdue.
Absolutely, yeah, it does.
But you can change it.
Yes, you can. You can get into the depths of the program quite easily and just have one date. So you've got one column.
Well, two.
It's either current or it's overdue.
Thank you.
Yeah, two columns.
Two columns,
Yeah,
current or
right.
overdue. And what this does is it stops people taking license because, see, if the reason I pay bills the day they're due is I want to maximise the use of my money. And remember when we talked about the value of money, there's two components. It's the actual quantity, so the number of dollars, and also terms. So the longer I don't pay you, the more advantage I have of using that money. So if I don't set rules and if I don't have those sorts of terms, then people will just go for the maximum.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And I think also you've got to be prepared to, if you ring someone and says there is a problem, they say there is a problem, you've got to be prepared to talk about that.
Yes.
And take them at face value.
Okay.
And negotiate something there and then, the day after the bill or the day the bill is due.
Right. Excellent.
Not 60 days later or 90 days later.
So the key message here is make sure there's a policy in place. Make sure that you're ringing people either on or the day after the due date. Make sure that things like statements do not sort of give this undertone of, well, it's not overdue for 90 days. It needs to be overdue from date due.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And make notes every time you ring someone to chase an outstanding account. Write it down. So they're not telling you the same thing each time. You can quickly, very easily get an idea of the people that are really trying not to pay.
Right. Now, let me ask you, because if I'm a business owner and I'm quite busy, is this something I can delegate easily?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You could have...
So who can do this?
You could have your receptionist doing this.
Right.
You do need to have a person that's in the office all of the time.
Right.
You can't... excuse me, it's very hard if you've got a bookkeeper coming in on site once a week to your office and you ask the bookkeeper to collect the debts, because they'll work out. If they don't want to pay you, they'll work out what day the bookkeeper's there and they'll not answer the phone and they'll return the call the next day.
Very
so
sneaky.
You get nowhere.
Right.
We see a lot of that. So you need someone in your office that's there 9 to 5 every day that's going to be receiving that call and able to actually talk to them.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah. And I only send one email reminder. After that, it's personal phone calls.
Excellent. So really putting the pressure on to make sure that people, because you shouldn't have to do it every time. If you do this correctly, if you actually train someone in their first couple of invoices with you, I think people quickly realise, oh, Barb's going to be calling, so make sure that one gets paid.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't need the hassle. I'll pay that one first.
Yep.
And the last thing I would say about this is don't be afraid to put their services or goods on hold.
Yeah.
After all, what's the point of having customers if they don't pay you?
And this is this Mexican standoff where people say, well, I don't want to harass them for money because they'll stop buying from us. Well, the question is, the more they buy from you, the more in debt you are, and who's controlling who in that environment.
Exactly, that's right. Well, you have made the effort to provide the service or paid for the goods that you sold to them.
Yep. Yep.
They should pay you.
Right. So it comes back to this confidence around asking for the money. And it shouldn't be money, it should be value that I've given to you that you owe me. You haven't responded by paying for my service.
That's right.
Okay, so what you're doing is almost insulting me by not paying.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was an agreement.
Yeah.
So we've got to
I
have
provided the service, you provide the money. That's right.
Okay, excellent. So really, let's talk about how you get paid quickly. What are the best ways?
The best way to get paid quickly, obviously the first thing is to make it easy for your clients to pay you. So we've discussed that.
Yep.
Offer as many payment types as possible, as many payment options.
Yep.
If you have repeat business,
yep.
if you have a business that has your clients come back to you again and again and again, use a service like Easy Debit.
Right.
Easy Debit is an Australian company that you just set up a client.
Yep.
A client signs an authority to say you may take our bills out of this nominated bank account.
Beautiful.
At the start of the relationship. And then every time you sell something to them, you just go on to your Easy Debit site online and add their invoice and say, okay, and that is 7 days. And in 7 days, it will automatically come out of their bank account.
Right.
Now, we use it and our clients love it.
So it's an interesting discussion because, we use a similar approach when we're coaching clients. They'll pay by a direct debit process, and we'll either take credit card or we use what do we use?
There's lots of sort of Easy Debit facilities.
We use PaySmart.
PaySmart,
So there's a whole lot of different facilities, and what they do is they take away that issue of asking for money. They make it automated. Some clients will object and say, oh, we don't like those sorts of systems. But in most cases, if you're on a program or if you're on a system or a regular payment, people say, actually, it saves me a lot of headache.
Well, it does. And even if it's not the same dollar value for your invoice each time,
and still use those systems.
Still use those systems, and you can just advise your client, we will send you an invoice stating how much. In 7 days, that invoice will be taken from your account. However, if you are in a situation in your business at the moment where you have a cash flow problem, ring us within those 7 days and we'll change the date.
Okay.
So that puts their mind at rest about using these types of services, that they've got some flexibility themselves.
So I can still imagine some people squirming when asking or setting up these rules. And, often we talk about where this comes from, this fear of asking for money or agreements around payment. And what I've found is a lot of people, they were brought up with this whole notion of money is not something to be discussed at the dinner table. And we don't talk about money, and this sort of belief system actually creates this problem. Because
it does. Yeah.
I've watched people, we're not comfortable about asking for money. Where's that come from? And really what it is, it's their upbringing. They've come through this process of, well, we don't talk about money, money's a dirty word. And it's sort of, well, hang on, I'm in business and money is the measurement of success in business. So if I'm not comfortable talking about it, then I might as well just go and work for someone else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's our culture.
Yep.
We're not brought up to regard money as something you talk about, it just happens.
Yes.
We don't get financially educated at school, which has always been a bugbear of mine, that there should be financial education at school. People shouldn't be afraid to talk about money.
Yeah.
So you look at successful people, the very successful people in our culture are the ones that don't mind talking about money.
And I think if you look at the root of that, the cause of this money's a dirty word, it's generally people who don't have money.
Absolutely. And if you do have money, there's people sitting out there ready to sort of put you down because you're successful.
Yeah, so that's why it's become a dirty word. It's a cycle.
It's a cycle. Exactly. That's
very,
right.
Very good.
So there are other types of things like Easy Debit. There's PIN payments if you mostly take one-off credit card payments.
Right.
So you can just Google PIN payments.
Yep.
You could offer a discount for early payment.
Yeah.
It works for electricity companies. You
It does,
notice
doesn't it?
they're all doing that now. So why wouldn't it work for you?
Yes, and this is why often when people say, I don't like charging extra for credit card, I say, well, why don't you build it into your price and offer a discount for cash or direct debit? And, interesting theory, because if you look at companies like the Good Guys,
Mm.
their whole tagline is pay less, pay cash. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those stores, but they have a price on the front of the merchandise. And then you say, how much for cash? And they do their little calculation and they reduce it by 5% or 10%. And they go, well, it says 1,000, but you can get it for 900. And then you ask, do you take credit card? And they go, of course we do.
So then you've just paid 900 on credit card.
Yeah. So
Wow.
and Amex to boot. So,
Even better.
so really, the whole psychology that they have is they call it a discount, but really, what all they're doing is they're saying, well, we've got a retail price, and then we've got a price that we sell at, and by giving you the discount on the spot, you feel like you got a good deal, and so
Absolutely.
therefore you're anxious to buy. And this is exactly what you're saying with the electricity companies that are offering a discount.
Mm.
They're just building it into their price and then taking it back off if you pay.
Absolutely. You get your electricity bill
Mm-hmm.
and it says 5% off for early payment.
Yeah.
And so you put in your diary, I'll pay that 2 days before it's due.
Yeah, how good's that?
Yeah. And I get 5% off. Yay.
Very clever.
Yes. My next point is, does your payment method link directly into your accounting software?
Okay.
So, for example, Easy Debit doesn't link directly into an accounting software, but PIN payments and PayPal do link directly into something like Xero.
Excellent.
So that just saves you time, but also as soon as someone's paid,
Yep.
it gets closed. The sale gets closed on
Right.
your
So now the
accounting
debtors that you
software.
have in your accounting system is live.
Yep, exactly.
Fantastic.
So that just not only saves time, but it always keeps you up to date.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yep. And take part or full payment up front.
Okay.
We did discuss this earlier.
You did.
But if you buy something from the internet, are they going to send it to you before they have your money?
Generally not.
Don't think so.
So really it's about changing the mindset of the business owner to say, can I get a deposit or can I get full upfront payment? And what do I need to do to facilitate it?
Absolutely. And what you're saying about changing the mindset is brilliant, because they have to change their mindset around money, around asking for money.
And surprisingly, when you ask up front for money up front, most people will comply.
75% of people say, oh, look, I'm really sorry, I forgot, I'll pay you today.
Yes.
You're only going to have a small problem. So asking for money, generally speaking, is very easy.
I was doing some work with a small company that did alarm installations. And one of their big issues is people would book a time for the alarm installer to come to their house. And then the alarm installer would come to that house and they would take payment on completion of the job. Now that sounds pretty normal. But here's what would happen is they would book a time and this alarm installer would go out 8 a.m. and be out the front of your place to install your alarm. And he'd ring and say, I'm here to install the alarm. And you'd say, oh, I forgot. I'm at work. And so now you cancel the appointment, but there's no payment. And this poor alarm installer has now blocked 2 hours of their day that they cannot recover.
And they can't get paid for it.
And they're not getting paid for. So we did a slight change. And what we did is we said you need to pay a deposit up front to confirm your booking. And that will be removed from the total amount that you pay. It was only like $40 or $50. But what we found is our cancellations fell through the floor. They didn't occur anymore. And people were much more conscientious because they had a commitment.
Absolutely. If you've paid something up front, you think, oh, I've already paid out some money, I need to get the rest of it.
Yeah. So surprisingly, this payment up front, as awkward as it may sound, is actually good at committing the client to actually going through with your service or your product as well.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yeah. We find that a lot too. We've just started with set price bookkeeping.
Yep.
So, okay, it's April now. You're going on to a set price bookkeeping plan. This is the one you want to go on to.
Yep.
Your first payment will come out on the 1st of April. Well,
Excellent.
it's already the 14th, so your first payment will come out today.
Excellent.
Before we've done anything for them. And they're happy with that.
Of course they do. So setting the positioning up front. Fantastic. So let's keep moving on here. So we talk about the next section, really, how do we know? Like, how do we keep a track of this? We need to know what people owe us. How often should we be across that?
You should know every single day who owes you money.
Right. So really, as a matter of policy, we should have a dashboard that we're looking at every single day that's going to reflect our cash flow, our position.
It doesn't matter if you've got a spreadsheet or if
Yep.
you've got an accounting program with an
Okay.
accounts receivable section on it. It doesn't matter what you use, as long as you look at it every single day.
Okay.
And just simply the act of doing that keeps it top of mind for you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Mm.
All right, so just making sure that we're always on top of that.
Yeah, and always make a habit to follow up late payers every single week.
Yep.
Don't let a week go by where you haven't looked at your list and made your follow-up calls.
Okay.
And remember to document your calls when you make them.
Those people that are uncomfortable with this, they can just systemize it and give it to their bookkeeper.
Absolutely. Most bookkeepers will do that for you. If you're using a software like Xero, and there are various other online softwares, if you're using an accounting software like that, look at something called Debtor Daddy.
Debtor Daddy.
Debtor Daddy. And it is an automated follow-up for your overdue accounts.
Wow.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So you don't need to do anything. The emails will go out automatically.
Yep. And you set what the emails say. You set when they get sent.
So you create a policy, you stick it in the system, and you never think about it again.
That's right. And that will get you 95%. So then you only have to ring the other 5%.
Fantastic. So Debtor Daddy.
Debtor Daddy's a good one. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Let's keep moving. So let's get to the crux of this. The key to successful cash flow is to do what?
Be bold. So we need to look at what you should do right now about collecting your debts or getting your cash flow moving. And the answer to that is be bold. Ask for the money. We've talked about that.
Yep.
Some people simply forget or have higher priorities in their day than paying you.
Yep. And you know what? It is easy as a business owner to say I've got higher priorities than chasing money.
Yeah. I mean, you probably, we're talking to business owners ourselves today.
Yeah.
And they've got 100 things to do today. One of them may not be paying you.
Yep. And like you say, if we don't have it in front of us every single day, we're not going to ask. And we think we can fix that by going and doing other work.
Exactly. And that just is a downward spiral as far as cash flow is concerned.
I imagine it is.
Okay, so here's some ideas that you can take on board and start looking at today for your business.
Yep.
Ask for a percentage payment up front if this is appropriate for your business.
Yep.
Some industries can and some industries can't.
Right.
But you'd be surprised at how many can when you really think about it.
Yep.
We do a bit of both. If we quoted a set price for a block of work, it'll be invoiced up front. Yes. But then we might also be doing an hourly rate, which of course you can't invoice till after the hours have been done. So you might have a mixture in your business. If I was speaking to a new client of mine the other day, and he said he normally invoices his jobs in 3 stages.
Yep.
And he was complaining that sometimes it took forever to get the last 2 payments in.
Yes.
So he get the first one in okay.
Yeah.
But the client wouldn't provide them with the necessary information to move on to the next stages.
Yeah.
So I suggested he use something like Easy Debit. Set up the 3 payments up front.
Yep.
Agree with your client on what dates those payments are coming out. Whether he's got the work in to be able to work on or not is irrelevant. He's got his money.
And here's the key here too. I think often people aren't prepared to talk about terms. And this should be part of the negotiation. So when you say, David, I'd love to use your service, I say, fantastic, let's talk about payment terms. Because we get so excited about winning a deal that we don't think twice about payment terms, assuming that they will comply with our payment terms, or probably not even giving a second thought to it. And I think that is so dangerous because everyone has different opinions on how they should pay, who they should pay, and when they should pay. And if I don't talk about how the money will transact as part of our initial deal, I'm just leaving myself exposed.
Absolutely you are. I think that needs to be signed, sealed and delivered before you start providing any goods or services. Excellent. And then everybody's clear. There's no issue. There's no elephant in the corner of the room.
Exactly. So this whole idea of being bold is making sure that people agree to your terms. And I'm talking face-to-face or verbally, not just implied terms that are in a terms and conditions area of a invoice.
No, I would do both. Yeah. I would speak them out loud, discuss them, and write them down.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's absolutely no, and it's good for your client as well.
Yep.
The next thing is pay before final delivery.
Mm.
A lot of businesses can do that,
Yes.
but they don't. So one of the easiest things to do is say, okay, we've finished upholstering this couch.
Mm.
We will deliver it back to you on Thursday. The total cost is $6,000.
Mm-hmm.
Please have payment ready for us when we arrive. How will you be paying for that?
Yeah, and our guy can take a credit card.
Yeah, exactly. That's
or
right.
Cash. So making sure that we've got those terms clear, making sure that we do collect the money before we walk away from the job. Because I think there's nothing harder than actually trying to collect payment once the product or service has been delivered. Because you've got no purchase, no leverage.
No leverage. Exactly.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
right. It's much easier while there's something they still want.
Great point.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The next thing is we're talking about being bold here, remember?
Yeah.
So put your prices up and clear yourself of your bad payers.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Bad payers are looking for a cheap deal.
Right. So what you're saying here is that if we discount, we're actually attracting bad payers?
Absolutely.
Okay, so putting our prices up actually will automatically eliminate a lot of bad payers?
It will, because they won't want your services in the first place.
Right.
However, those that value your services and know the quality of your work are not going to object if you put your prices up.
Okay, so see, once again, we're talking about value and not price.
Absolutely.
So if they value my work, then the price is not the predominant decision-making factor.
No. And I can hear you sitting there thinking, if I put my prices up, I'll lose customers.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think that, but now I try and put my prices up once a year, and every time I think, I'll lose customers, I'll lose customers.
Yeah.
I've only ever lost 2, and I didn't really want those anyway.
There you go.
Yeah. So now I have another even more bold suggestion.
Okay.
Final bold suggestion.
Yes.
Put their goods or services on hold till they've either signed an easy debit form and agreed to a payment plan for the arrears.
Wow.
Give them an option. You will either increase their prices or they need to sign an easy debit form.
That's interesting.
And increase their prices several times quickly in succession, 1.5 or 2 times your normal rate, so that when they do pay, you get half or all of the next job in advance.
That's bold.
That last one is quite bold.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is we can set the price as a part of the negotiation process for terms. And we can be offering discounts for prompt payment. So we're better off putting a high price out there, and then discounting, which is what the electricity companies are currently doing, and saying you're getting a discount by paying early as opposed to we're charging you more for paying late.
Exactly right. And one of the easiest ways to do this is not talk about price when you first see them.
Right.
You have to sell your service and your skill
first
before you talk about price, because then they won't care what the price is. They'll want what you've got to offer.
Yeah, fantastic. So, look, we're coming toward the end of this discussion, and I'd just like to sort of really identify what are the key things, what are the key steps, or what are the key actions that people need to be focused on right now. What are the immediate things that they can do?
Right. So one of the first things you should do is get your bookkeeping up to date.
Yep.
Thank you.
So getting your bookkeeping up to date means?
So that you know who owes you money.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. Find out who owes you money. Get your bookkeeping up to date. You'll know that.
Yep.
If you are unsure, while you're in this process of getting your bookkeeping up to date, if you're unsure if someone owes you money or not, ring them and ask for it anyway.
Right.
And if they say it's paid, ask on what date and by what method.
Okay.
You can do this nicely by explaining you're sure they have paid, but you just can't identify the exact payment in your bank account.
So we can sometimes just make those calls anyway.
So if you really can't tell from once you've got your bookkeeping up to date, ring anyway.
Okay.
They're not going to be insulted.
Yeah, fantastic.
The next point is review your invoice format.
Yep. So really just making sure that it's easy to pay, it's clear about the terms, everything on there is obvious, and it makes it very sort of, it hits the top of the pile instead of the bottom of the pile.
Exactly, yeah. Could it be cleaner or clearer?
Yep.
Ask someone else to look at your invoice and see if it's easy to see what to pay and when to pay.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
Excellent.
How many payment methods do you offer?
Yep.
Could you add just one more? Make it as easy as possible for your customer to pay you.
Okay. So making sure there's multiple payments, all those things we talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
exactly.
Fantastic.
Review your written debt collecting policy.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I think most people aren't comfortable at talking about money, so if we have a policy, it actually removes that uncomfortableness. And so,
Of course it does. If you've got a script, you're just reading it.
yes. And if we know that it's day 15 and it's due, we get on the phone.
Exactly. And if you're just reading it, it becomes less personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me asking you for money. It's me ringing up and reading a script.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Follow up your outstanding debtors every single week.
Right.
Don't do it first thing Monday morning. Nobody wants to talk to you on first thing Monday morning.
Yep.
So make it midweek.
Okay.
If you don't like asking for money, find someone to do it for you.
Yep.
Or use an automated system like Debtor Daddy.
Yeah, fantastic.
Be bold is
Yep.
my last point.
Yep.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got.
Mm.
Don't be afraid to ask for your money up front.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to put your prices up.
Yeah, fantastic. So really, what we're talking about, and it seems to all sort of stem around the same thing, which is making sure people are comfortable about asking for the money, making sure they're clear about what their expectation is. If you're uncomfortable about it, create a system for it, and just make sure that you're, rather than being a negative, it's interesting when people talk about price rises and their fear. Here's one of my favourite strategies. If you're going to do a price rise, what you do is, rather than sending a letter out to clients and say, look, unfortunately, with times are tough and and our prices have to go up, we say, we've got some great news. Our prices are going up in 3 months' time, and we're letting you know in advance. If you want to pre-purchase any product, you can buy at the current price before the price rise.
Absolutely lovely.
So it's the same thing as what you mentioned before. It's all about perspective.
Absolutely. And that's good for goods.
Yes.
But for services, we do it slightly differently.
Right.
We say we are putting our prices up as of next month.
Yep.
However, because you are a valued client, your prices won't go up for 3 months.
There you go. So once again, it's a positive, not a negative.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. I said, oh, that's good. 3 months. Yay.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So look, we're sort of coming to an end. It's a fairly important area. I know people get sensitive; they get stuck around money. Obviously, speaking to a bookkeeper or having someone on board that can consult with you to make sure you feel okay about how you ask for this money would really clean up a lot of mess. Because imagine if everyone paid on time. Imagine if they paid in advance. Most small business owners out there would be so happy if they didn't have to think about money.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest bugbears in running a business, I believe.
Yeah.
Is getting your money in once you've provided the goods or the services.
Yeah, but we know that we don't want to work for free.
No. But at the moment, if people are not paying you, I love free stuff. This is what your clients are saying.
Yeah. It's true, and if you don't have a debtors policy, they love the free money.
Absolutely, that's right.
So really, I mean, let's sort of wrap it up and sort of look. How do people get out of this problem if they're in this predicament? What do they need to do?
The first thing they need to do is make sure they know what money's owing. So get their bookkeeping up to date.
Okay. Seems to be a common thread there.
Very common thread.
Yeah.
Write themselves a debtors policy.
Excellent.
So that it's easy and less embarrassing to ring and ask for money because you're just reading off a script.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing you should do is before you even start the job, make sure you've got all your paperwork completed, signed off, contracts, agreements, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And that paperwork should outline any payment arrangements.
Okay.
So it should have been discussed and it should be in writing. And if you want penalty clauses for late payments, you need to have that in your initial paperwork.
So where do people go? Like, can a bookkeeper help with this?
A bookkeeper can, because they see so many, they can. Bookkeepers are not allowed to give you financial advice, but they can certainly advise you on these sorts of things.
Right.
Because they've seen so many in so many different types of industries.
Yeah. So really, bookkeeper's your friend. The bookkeeper's
so.
the one that keeps you on the ball, lets you know how much money you owe or have owed to you. And their job is to really just make sure that you've got timely reports, you've got a system in place, and you're following the process so you can continue doing what you do best, which is run your business.
Absolutely. Bookkeeping is one of the easiest things to segment up and package up and give to someone else to look after for you.
Okay, Barb. So look, I suppose if people wanted to find out more about what you can do to help them, how do you operate? So what happens if someone wants to engage you?
We have a webpage.
Yep.
www.countingsense.com.au.
Okay.
And you can fill out a contact form on that web page.
Yeah.
Straight on the home page, and
Okay.
we will respond to that and give you a call, have a chat.
Great. Because I know you mentioned, look, the people who are on the call, I'm going to send out an email after the call, because I know you mentioned that when you go and see someone for the first time, you do a financial health check. And there's 20 points. There's 20 things that you look at in that first meeting. So what are the sort of things you're looking for?
The sort of things we look for is whether your wages are reconciled.
Right.
So do your wages actually balance? You might be paying wages every week, but do they balance to anything?
Yep.
We look at, are your BASs up to date? Are they lodged?
Yep.
Properly lodged and up to date? Do you have any unresolved suspense items?
Yep.
What do your payables and your receivables look like? Are they messy? Do they need clearing up? Things like that.
Okay. So when
are you
go
taking
through
regular backups?
Oh, that's an important one.
That's an important one that people often miss.
So really just in initial discussion, you can assess where people have got their holes in their system. Fairly straightforward to fix. The key here is to make sure they're regular and up to date with their reports and they've got all of their structure in place as far as terms.
Absolutely. We're coming up to the end of the financial year now, and people are starting, some business owners are starting to panic to say, oh, my books aren't in order, I won't be able to give them to my accountant. And you just need, if you wanted a financial health check, any bookkeeper could do that for you.
Right.
But we can do it also.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Barb, thanks very much for your time today and your insights. I'm sure the guys on the call have got some value out of that. And look, all the best with the future. And thanks again for your help today and for your insights.
My pleasure. I hope it's helped.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, thanks.